in that respect is the what's going on with the Trump-Russia negotiations. So the Trump, if you watch a part, I thought one of the most revelatory parts of Trump's interview with Rogan, where you get to see more of Trump, sort of unvarnished, because it's almost a 3-hour interview. That the benefit is that you see some real true sides of Trump. And at one point, he makes clear to Rogan he would never publicly negotiate his honest position. So that what he's when he's making public statements about an international conflict, he's doing what he believes will lead to negotiating the best outcome. It's not necessarily what he sincerely believes, not even necessarily what his actual leverage or pitch is. That what he wants is a peace deal in Ukraine, and he wants to be able to sell it when it comes down the pipeline. So being rhetorically anti-Russia, helps sell domestically the peace deal that's coming that is highly likely to be very favorable to Russia. That what Russia wants is Ukraine to commit to no NATO, and the Russian areas of Ukraine to become part of Russia, to end the constant conflict in the Donbass and on their Russian border. That's very easy to achieve. You just tell Zelensky, that's it, no more money, nothing else, unless you agree to it. So then the only question is, how do you sell it domestically? And I think to sell it domestically, you make it look like you're being tough on Russia, you're threatening Russia, you're trying to leverage Russia, you're making all these claims about Russia, that all these people have died in the war, so on and so forth. I don't know if you can necessarily believe any of those statements as being Trump's sincere opinion. I think it's Trump trying to shape the domestic landscape so that when the deal he knows he can get done gets done. If for some reason this deal doesn't get done over the next 6 months, then Trump is flatly screwed up and taking bad advice if he actually believes some of this nonsense. For example, acknowledge that close to 1 million Ukrainians have died in the conflict, but they pretend there have been more Russians that died. There's just no evidence to support that. The BBC tried to break it down, looking at all the different Russian sources and direct and indirect sources available, and the numbers they came up with were pretty close to what Russia's published numbers are in terms of the number of deaths and casualties from the conflict. That just the nature of the conflict was such that Ukraine was highly likely to lose more people at a pretty high rate than the Russians were. Now, I have no doubt that the information he's being spoon-fed is false. But whether or not he believes it, you don't know. In other words, Putin knows how many people that have really been lost. He doesn't really care about that aspect. And I don't think in terms of if the strategy is that this is an actual plan to negotiate with Putin, it's an unpersuasive one. And that's what makes me think Trump knows that. Trump knows Putin well enough, Russia well enough, to know these and the intelligence community well enough to know they're likely lying to him, and this likely won't motivate Putin. So that's why I think this is mostly just conditioning the domestic landscape to make it look like he coerced a deal out of Putin that was really the deal that was always on the table from the get-go, and just so he can pitch it and present it better domestically without being accused of being a Putin toady. I assume that's what Trump is up to, given he doesn't ever really publicly negotiate. Remember, go back to North Korea. Remember all the Rocket Man talk and all the aggressive talk? It was all designed to set up to give cover to a peace deal that he was trying to get done, that Bolton blew up. So I would assume that that's still Trump's modus operandi. So in all of those kind of cases, I don't take at face value what Trump is saying when it comes to foreign policy negotiation. It's often just him trying to leverage one side or the other, and he's leveraging the court of public opinion on one side and leveraging a deal on the other side, and the two often don't easily match. That one is meant for domestic consumption in order to sell a deal that is in fact not being negotiated on the terms he's publicly suggesting they are. That would be my best guess as to what Trump is doing. It's always possible he believes the nonsense. It would be a surprise if he believes this right away. And the other problem is he knows, again, that Russia knows exactly how many have died, and so I think that's my guess. It's a negotiation strategy, but we'll find out over the next 3 to 6 months. I think that's his time frame to try to get a deal done. But he wants to condition the domestic appetite and probably wants to get all his people confirmed before he does a deal, knowing that there'll be some people in the deep state apparatus deeply unhappy with any deal that gets done.